Hello, everyone. Welcome to Storytellers Sundays Online, the second edition. We started this event last week, basically, of course, as a response to the current events. And also that, for those of you who are members of Toastmasters, you might have seen quite a significant activity coming from moving all the meetings that we were used to having in person to have them online. And we thought, okay, so there's all these people, club officers and district officers doing this hard work and learning how to make meetings online. Why not organize an event that's going to be, complete relax for everyone, where you'll be just able to come, join, sit back, relax, and maybe listen to other people sharing their stories. And if you will feel like it, share a story of your own. So that was the main idea of the Storytellers Sunday online. Last week, our topic was dating, because we really thought that it would be good to come up with some light and relaxed topic. However, actually, some of the stories that we heard, especially in the open mic part, were very profound. And what we thought, okay, maybe giving it, let's go, if dating is the lightest topic possible, let's turn it and let's go into something very deep and profound. And one of the places that inspired Storytellers Sunday, for example, when Zain was organizing the Storytellers Nights in Wroclaw, was the Moth, which is Storytellers event organization that promotes storytelling. I really like their approach, because they're saying that you can explore a specific topic or area of interest by sharing stories that are focused on this topic. So today together, we are going to explore the topic of the meaning of life. Now, one thing I would like to do, I would like to introduce you to the co-pilot of the evening, which is Zain Abidin. And Zain, you can maybe say hi.
Hello everyone, this is Zain. I'm going to be helping Lukas with all the technical stuff in the background.
Thank you very much, Zain, for helping. What I'd like to make you aware is, in case you have any technical challenges or difficulties, please send chat message to Zain, not to me, because I will not be able to follow the chat throughout the meeting, okay? Now, the one more thing I want to say, in the chat, you will see a couple of links. You will see the links to the Facebook page. You will see the link to the voting on menti.com. And so be sure that you check out for that one. And we have a couple of house rules, how this meeting is organized for everybody's maximum enjoyment. And with that, I will pass the word to Zain to tell you a little bit more about that. Zain, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lukas. So a couple of very simple house rules. The first thing, we are going to keep everyone muted while the speakers are speaking, and I will make sure of that, that everybody is muted. I will unmute the person who is going to speak next, or if it is Lukas who is hosting the meeting, so that will be my job. Applause. So normally in a public speaking meeting or environment, we clap a lot. Here, because you will all be muted, probably you will not, speaker will not hear if you're clapping. So what we suggest instead is to do the sign language, which is a sign language for applause. So let's try all of this right now. Yay! Great job for Lukas. Great job for this event. Woohoo! Good. So anytime you want to express something, maybe you found the joke very funny, so just feel free to laugh on your screen, because the person might be able to see that and see that it worked. If you feel any emotion, just give a thumbs up or anything like that. So any kind of feedback visually that you can give to the speaker, that will be good. I will be watching the chat, so if you have any questions, please feel free to write there. I will try to help you out. Back to you, Lukas.
Thank you, Zain. One more technical tip. If Zoom is a new tool for you, on the right-hand side on top, you have the possibilities to pick the gallery view. And if you see the gallery view, you can see all the faces of the people who are here in the meeting, or at least 20 or 25 of them. Okay, I believe right now we're ready to go, and we are ready to introduce the first speaker of the evening. And the first speaker of the evening is a lady whom I met, I think 4 years ago. I met her in Lublin, that's a city at the end of the world, where in the very far east of Poland. And I attended their an event, a Polish Toastmasters event for about 300 people. And the interesting thing about Toastmaster events in Poland is that they are in Polish, which I didn't know before I came to the event. And at the time, I didn't really speak much Polish. So I was there a little bit lost and a little bit lonely. And Alex was a member of the group of people from Wroclaw, one of my favorite Polish cities, who sort of adopted me and took care of me and, you know, like had me join their group and help me survive that weekend there. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. I also know that Alex is the kind of woman with some deep life wisdom, and therefore I thought that she would be the perfect speaker for today's Storytellers Sunday when the topic is meaning of life. With the story title, Maybe This Was Not the Best Idea, help me welcome Aleksandra Szczepaniak.
I think we have a bit of an issue. I think Alex didn't join yet.
Oh, that's excellent. In that case, now we already know about Aleksandra, which will save us some time later. And let me have a quick look. Our second speaker is already ready in the meeting. So let me do a little introduction for him, and we will see when Alex joins the meeting afterwards. Second speaker is also kind of cool. And I met him longer ago, but I really got to talk to him about 4 years ago when he accepted our invitation to become the keynote speaker of a residential weekend, which is an annual event that we're organizing in the Czech Republic for about 100 Toastmasters every year. And there I was fascinated by Antonio's deep presentation, in which he not just he spoke, but he also did some magic tricks with an iPad, and he projected some of his drawings, or he created some of drawings online. So I found that super cool. And also just by talking to Antonio, I got the impression that, well, he gave some thoughts to the meaning of life. And therefore, he's a great speaker to have here tonight. With the story title, Pulse, help me welcome Antonio Meza.
Yeah. Thank you, Lukas. The meaning of life. So here's a question for you. What makes you get up in the morning? Probably wanting to go and have some coffee, or maybe you're already late for something, but there's something that motivates you, and you don't necessarily have to think about it. When you don't have to think about it, it's just there. But when you don't have it, then it's very difficult to get up. So long time ago, in Mexico, where I was born and where I was growing up, I was a teenager in high school in Mexico, in a city called Puebla. And as a hypersensitive teenage Mexican guy, I used to go to school every day, almost in automatic pilot, like not really knowing exactly why. And being aware of a lot of things that were already happening in the world, I started to develop this difficult attitude to know, well, what's the point? What's the difference? To come to study, to get back, to have good grades, and then to come to study, and then you graduate, you get a job, you make money. So what's the point of all that? To deal a little bit with this sensitivity and all these questions, I used to write poetry. Started to write notebooks and notebooks and pages full of poetry every day. And mostly that will help me to deal with my questions, with my thoughts, with that sensitivity, and to be in touch with people. Eventually, I will also became the editor-in-chief of a magazine in high school, and started publishing poems from myself, but also from many other classmates. And I thought that was already something that was worth doing. I graduated from college. Time passed. I graduated from high school. Time passed. I went into college. I didn't really forget those questions. I was always trying to find what was that could motivate me, or that could help me to make a difference, perhaps. But I was very angry. I was very angry with how I was perceiving my country. You know, a lot of people think about Mexico as this sunny place where it's great to have holidays and people are very happy and they like to party a lot. But it's also a very difficult country to live in. And I was very sensitive about that. Time went by. And then one day, shortly before graduating from college, already around 23 years old, I went back to my high school. And that school has, you know, high school, secondary school, primary school, kindergarten, all the levels. And I went back to my high school. I don't remember now why. Probably I was going to pick up my younger brother. And I went to this patio where I used to play basketball, and there was a rehearsal. And there was a rehearsal of a teacher guiding a group of primary school kids into this representation, like a little stage representation for a festival or something, I don't know. And I was curious to see that, and I went there and I started to listen. They were representing this poem where is the story of planet Earth. And the story of planet Earth, where planet Earth is telling you how life started to happen, how the oceans were created, how planet Earth was very happy about trees and animals, and then these new species of very curious primates that were going everywhere and construction and making changes, until eventually it gets invaded by these new species and gets sick. So the story is the planet Earth telling the story of life until life disappears. And I was very touched by that because that was my poem. Somebody had found that poem in one of those magazines, and some teacher thought that it was worth sharing it with a group of kids. I realized at that point, I don't know if you have heard about this idea called the butterfly effect. People say that the butterfly effect, that a butterfly can fly in Japan, for example, and then these energy waves create a storm in the other side of the world. And I realized that my actions can have that butterfly effect. That I don't know what's going to happen, but one day you're here sharing a story, or you're in a Toastmasters contest, or you're writing a poem, and once it's out there, you don't know what's going to happen, but it can generate that butterfly effect and have an effect that is beyond what you can think about. So I realized that I was not too small or not too insignificant to make a difference. That nobody is too small to make a difference. I think about a little girl in Sweden that started to skip school every Friday recently to make a strike and to protest because she thought that the governments in the world were not taking enough actions against climate change. And suddenly last year she was already in Time magazine Person of the Year, and children all around the world are imitating her, protesting. And it's just a little girl. Like that, you can think about your own examples. But the point is that no one is too small to make a difference. And for me today, that's what takes me out of it. The idea that maybe today I can do something that can generate those waves of impact and actually make a difference. So today I'm looking forward to listen to your meaning of life. My meaning of life is to know that I'm here, that every day I have an opportunity to generate a butterfly effect. Up to you, Lukas.
Thank you for sharing that, Antonio, and thank you for the message. I think, especially now in these challenging times, it's a great one to have, that everybody's contribution counts in one way or another, or it's hard to predict where some small act with good intention, how it can spread, and that the effect can get amplified, especially today when the world is so closely interconnected. Thanks again. Thank you. We continue with our speaker number 3 for today, which is a gentleman whom I also got to know in district events. That was for District 95 in the times when District 95 was still all Eastern and all Northern Europe. And however, I really got to know him again at the residential weekend in the Czech Republic. And what I know about him, he can do a lot of tricks because he studied to be a mime. He knows a lot of great tricks without words. And when he gets on a stage, he can really create a world. He can create a room around himself when there is no room around himself. I'm really curious whether he will put any of these tricks to practice today in an online presentation. But certainly I'm looking forward to what he's going to have to share with us. With a story title, Reduce to Your Max, help me welcome Marc Schuck.
Thank you, Lukas. At first, I have to say thank you for organizing this event. It is great, and this is so amazing how many people are here in this meeting. And it's nice to see a lot of people here with Kuma and me too, and a lot of people who I know from a lot of conferences and other organizations and things. Okay, at first I have a question. How many of you have ever had a lot of stress? Can you raise your hand? Who has ever had the feeling of it's too much for me? I would like to tell you some experience of my life. 2 years ago, I worked as a team leader. I'm a mechanical engineer, and as an entertainer, I worked as a dance sport coach and dance sport judge, and did a lot of Toastmasters contests, and I worked everywhere. And what did my friends always say to me? Marc, you are doing too much. I didn't want to admit it, but I noticed that my performance in all areas collapsed more and more. But come on, you are young and you think to yourself, I have tons of energy and resources that I can mobilize at any time. And then we bought a house and we started to renovate the house. Renovate. Okay, at first all wallpapers and wood paneling removed. All floors torn out. The chimney from the roof to the basement turned down. The electrical system completely reinstalled, 2 walls out, all water pipes, of course, in stainless steel, mechanical engineer, I reinstalled by myself, and 2 bathrooms completely rebuilt. And last year we started with a patio outside with the garden and. That took me 1.5 years. Every day I continue working in the house after my normal work. My body was just working. And at the same time, I lost a lot of weight and slept terribly and could not switch my head off. Do you know this feeling? You cannot switch your head off? One picture here. My wife took this photo of me. That was me after painting walls till late at night. And we lived in a flat before, and I drove home in the flat, and I was so exhausted that I just fell into bed, not having a shower, but I was so exhausted. My wife did this picture in the morning. And it was really exhausting. But what I had enough time for, the people who are most important for me, my family, my wife and our daughter. Fortunately, I had friends who helped me and also showed me a way, like tools with getting things done. You know the method? But I didn't want to do getting all things done. I want to do the right things done. And that's why I started to live with the principle, reduce to your maximum. At first, I started asking myself questions. What is my goal? What I really want in my life? And after a while, it was clear for me. At first, I said, the most important person in my life, that's me. That sounds a little bit weird, but why? I want my body and my mind to stay fit as long as possible. My father died at the age of 65, which means I have 40 years left. No, 20 years, okay. Now I want to be fit so long as possible that I can support the people who are so important to me in my life, my family and my friends. Okay, how can you do that? Reduce to your maximum. At first, I wrote an overview. I write everything down, what you are doing, what is important for you. And then the next step, reduce and simplify. Short story. Since last year, we have a greenhouse in our garden, and tomatoes grows in the greenhouse. Wow. We were on holiday for 2 weeks. Okay, I built an automatic watering system. And when we came back from vacation, we had really huge tomato plants, but very few tomatoes. Why? You have to shorten the plants so that the plant doesn't concentrate on growing, but on growing on the tomatoes. And that was missing in my life. I was doing a lot of things that I could not grow in the important areas for me. Reduce to your maximum. Limit yourself to the essentials. Since January, I stopped teaching dancing and a lot of other things too. But I thought about what else you can reduce, and there are really a lot of things. One example, reduce your speed. in different areas. I used to drive normally as fast as I could to get somewhere. But this was very exhausting, and when you drive so fast, you don't arrive that much earlier. So I take my time now. 130, it's enough. And on the highway, and if you reduce your speed around, but if you reduce the speed around me, my creativity increases. By the way, I always practice my speeches for contests and for Toastmasters while driving. It can be that it looks a little bit strange for the others, but I don't care. Reduce your speed. And my last tip for today, and that's really is the most important thing for me, start your day with a morning routine. When I get up in the morning, the first thing I do, I write my diary. There's written what I'm grateful for, how do I make this day special, that every day is a special day. And then I meditate for 10 to 20 minutes. Think about what can you reduce in your life. If you have plenty of time now in this situation, write everything down and think about what you can reduce to your maximum. Back to Lukas.
Thanks, Mark. So first thing, I think if anybody didn't know which country you live in, after this maximum of 130, where you lowered speed to 130, everybody knows now that you're used to the German highways, where for the rest of the world, this is the maximum. But thank you also for the metaphor with the tomato plant. I think that was a great one. You actually have to, I'm no expert gardener, but I heard something like that. You need to cut the plant so it can spend its energy on growing the fruits. Thanks a lot. Our next speaker is a Toastmaster. I would say it's certainly one of the top 3 most active Toastmasters in the Czech Republic. Because just recently she organized a residential weekend where that maxed out its capacity. So they had to stop selling tickets 1 week before the event because it was just maxed out. That is such good PR. And she's also my favorite companion for discussions about meaning of life over beer, burger, and fries. So I believe she'll have something interesting to share with us today because because beer, burger, and fries are certainly good ingredients for deep and profound discussions. The title of her story is Face Your Fears, and I would like you to help me welcome Jenny Haka.
Let's make an exercise together. First of all, close your eyes. Close your eyes, everyone. Not the cameras, just your eyes. All right. Imagine you are walking in a beautiful green forest. There's you and there's a long path ahead of you. Surrounding, there are some tall, magnificent trees, beautiful, colorful flowers on the grass around. And you can hear birds singing on the background. You can feel the sun rays so warm on your face and on your shoulders. You take a deep breath in. You can smell nature, all pieces of it. You're breathing in life itself. Now, in this beautiful, magical forest, you're not alone. Imagine a person that is close to you, side by side, and you're walking in this path together. Now open your eyes. How do you feel? Is it peaceful? Are you calm, relaxed, grateful? Well, according to different psychological studies from some not verified sources on the internet, The meaning of this person close to you is a person who is very important in your life, that you can trust and he can always support you. If during these days of quarantine, you have had this person in the same space with you, at least 2 meters away, well, I hope you know, my friends, that you are very lucky people. For me, this person who has been by my side in this imaginary forest, but also during all my life, has been my brother. My brother and I are very different people. First, we don't look like usual siblings do. We don't look alike. You cannot tell we're so related. Secondly, I was born in winter and he was born in a totally different season, summer. And not only that, 3 different summers behind me. I am a more calm person and quiet and more logical. He, on the other hand, is more energetic, more expressive, more emotional. And one very important difference that I don't know now why our grandma would always mix our names, because we clearly have so different names. It's my name is Jenny and his name is Tony. Despite of being so different, we grew up to be very close to each other. For example, in countless childhood games, if it was hide and seek, he knew that I wasn't the fastest runner in the game. So he would find a closer hiding spot for myself first, and then he would hide for himself. Or when we were playing computer games, Johnny would never jump to the next level or to choose the battles and the enemies he would fight in the game without first consulting my logical thinking and my huge strategies that I would have at the time. In our families, we have very great parents. They have been so open and communicating with us and supporting. But, you know, children always have these not so great requests. For example, can I go to the school trip when I was just sick the week before? In these discussions, we would consult together. We would build the case as if we were each other's lawyers and then present it proudly into the parental court. And now we are all grown up, living in different parts in this world. I am in Czech Republic and he is currently working in Morocco. We still discuss and talk to each other and consult for many life problems. Whether it's in games, in family, or in the world, it has always been Jenny and Johnny having each other's backs. Now, let's go back to that scenario in the forest where you imagine that person side by side with you. You're walking with them, and all of a sudden they disappear. You're panicking, you're shocked. Where did they go? You look around, you shout their name, your heart is barely beating anymore. You can just feel the tears are climbing up there. They're going up to your tears and then down your face. You feel as if you are the loneliest creature in this forest. You're all alone and you're lost. Now imagine that this feeling I had exactly 1 year ago on 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning when I got called up from my parents in Albania. Hi, Jenny. Good morning, darling. Don't be so sad, but we have to give you some hard news. Your brother, he was out with some friends last night and there was an accident. And he's in the hospital now. He's in a coma. We're just waiting what the doctors will tell us. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't talk anything. I couldn't even think. The whole world just went blank in those moments. For the first time, I had to face the fear of being completely alone in this world. And that was very scary place. After the first shock passed away, I got myself together and booked a ticket and flew to Albania. My brother, he stayed in a coma for the next 48 hours and in intensive care by the doctors. But fortunately, my strong, energetic Johnny, he recovered and he started to get better day by day. I and my family, we couldn't be any more grateful for that, for having him back and given a second chance. Now, after the obvious physical shock, the life-threatening shock that he had to go through was fading away, there was another shock, the psychological, the questions, why, what happened, how did it happen? He had so many questions for us, how we found him after the accident, and we knew nothing what he had done before the accident. His memory was blurry, and it was a long process. It took time to find all the pieces and to fit the whole puzzle, the story together. But here's how it happened, and I want to share it with you today. He had been out with some friends on a weekend. They had had some beers and partied. After the party, they were on the way home, but as young people would usually do, they still hang around, they tell stories, maybe smoke a joint, and tell jokes and continue with each other on the side of the street. This is the reality most common for many Europeans here. All of a sudden, they can see a police car at the end of the street. And this is such a bummer. Wow, such an adventure, fun night in any other country. But in Albania, you could actually get arrested for that. So imagine in the pressure that my brother was feeling in his head in these moments. He had been the perfect son, very responsible, caring, supporting his sister, his family, always there for them, accountable, and now he would be sent to jail? This would be such a shame, a terrible shock, a disgrace. What would the people think? What would his family think? It would break their hearts. They would be disappointed. They would be ashamed. And for him, for Johnny, this was the biggest fear that he had, disappointing and hurting his family. So of course, no. He could not allow this to happen. He had to find a way out. And the only way out that he found was to run away as soon as possible, as fast as possible from that situation, from the police car. And he did run and run and run until bam, something stopped him, a sudden accident. He woke up in the hospital bed. The thing, as it usually turns out with life, when you get a second chance, you seem to be the same you, but life does not seem the same to you anymore because you have learned from it. Life has taught you some lessons. And for my brother, the lesson that he was taught, and he wants me to share it with you today, is to face your fears. Because when you have troubles and problems, you can think that you can run away from them temporarily, but that is not a solution. That will always bring more and more trouble that you cannot expect and that you cannot control anymore. And it is true that some decisions are more difficult than others because you're afraid that you're going to hurt the people close to you, or that they might be disappointed in you. But you should always keep in mind that if you are really the most important person for them in their lives, after some time, they will find it within them to understand, to forgive, to support you, and to always love you no matter what. For me, this second chance in life that was given to my brother, of course, I am very grateful, and I had to face the fear of being without him in this world. So now we are thinking to make better use of this second chance, and he will be in Czech Republic here soon. We'll be walking on the streets side by side together because he will be starting his studies in September. And I want you to think for yourself. What are some fears, some problems that you're avoiding right now that you don't want to face? Just remember that you cannot escape them forever. You always have a decision to make. And no matter how tough, how difficult that decision is, make sure that it's not running away from it anymore. But be courageous and face your fears. Mr. Toastmaster.
Now, Jenny, that was a thriller. Thanks for sharing that, and so glad to hear it has a happy ending. And well, the perfect happy ending is going to be, of course, when Johnny is going to come to Prague, and you'll be able to share some more moments together, and also, I guess, some more time together than when you're living across half of the continent, half continent apart. We continue with the next person to speak, which is, again, person whom I know from the Toastmasters District Conference. Is actually, I know this lady from the second district conference I ever attended, one in Krakow in 2014, when she was competing in the district finals in the international speech contest. And so then she sort of belongs to my Toastmaster childhood heroes. And what I figured out during the sound check we had 1 hour before the meeting, that she really takes the effort to make things great and to maximize the chances that things will work out well. With the story title, Said Yes Before You Said No, help me welcome our next storyteller, Dorleta Gonzalez.
Thank you very much, Lukas. Hello, everybody. The meaning of life, or better, why are we here? What is life all about? Or what is the purpose of the existence? So we are looking really for the answer of these questions. For generations and generations, they all were looking for this answer, and they have a variety of answers. Depends of their culture, background, countries, nationalities. And I bet if I ask you that question, you will all give me different solutions. Well, for me, the meaning of life has been changing and modifying and transforming through this unidirectional road, which is called time. It had been like a cat looking after a mouse that can never catch it, sometimes having the illusion that it had. Just to realize, like the sea sand on your hands, the stronger you crunch your fists, the quicker disappear. When I was a younger lady, I mean, in a very young, early 20s, I believe that we are here to discover this world. So to travel, and the only way to eat the whole world and to find out what the meaning of life was by doing it. So I took the quest, and I packed my suitcase full of innocence, fearless, craziness, and zero English. So I went to this beautiful green emerald island called Ireland. By the way, they speak English there. So straight away, I believed I did found the meaning of life. When I could feel the winds of the freedom, I could taste the independence soaked in Guinness, and I was proud of myself because I survived my own stupidity. But very, 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 very quickly, this magic started to disappear. And I started to question myself, well, this cannot be all. It must be something else. It must be something more in life. What is this life all about? So my belief, it changed very quickly when I found a young man with cavalry's manners and a cute Irish accent. I thought, that's it. The meaning of life is procreation, family, find a partner. So what do? I gave all myself into this marriage. But funny enough, again, like everything, I learned that love can be sometimes painful, physically and psychologically painful. So after 20 years, like a third world war, everything come out, hate, pain, and the meaning of life got broken into pieces. So of course, very quickly, the meaning of life, it modified, no surprise. Until one day, actually, I was at my Toastmasters club, Erlangen Toastmasters, which is a public speaking club. And my mentor just told me with a very strong Scottish accent, Dorleta, if anybody asks you to do something, say yes before you say no. I was extremely skeptical. I wasn't that sure, but my curiosity and my need of really finding the meaning of life, I decided to give it a try. So I started to say yes before no. And before I knew, I was giving my time to others. I was sharing my knowledge. And I was really genuinely caring for other human beings. And that forced me to go out of my comfort zone. So this kind of action, it actually transformed the thoughts I had about the meaning of life. I discovered that the meaning of life is actually evolution. Yes. It is like a life cycle of learning and a life cycle of teaching. And it's a circle that will never end. We keep on learning, we keep teaching, we learn and we grow. This is really the meaning of life. However, hey, this is not all. The highest level of life is actually love. And the only way to get love, you know how it is? By giving it. And you know how you give? By saying yes. And by saying yes and going out of your comfort zone. So regardless, wherever you come from, your nationality, your culture, your background, I highly, highly recommend you to say yes before no. Well, with one exception, do not get married with the wrong person that is for you. But apart of that, go out of your comfort zone. And if Lukas actually asks you to deliver a speech in this platform, say yes before you say no. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorleta. I think, and thank you also for giving this useful advice for everybody in the audience. I mean, now it's obvious I'm never going to ask anyone from the audience to marry me, because to that they would say no. But for sure, I can ask them to tell a story in one of the next Storytellers nights online. Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing. Okay, we have our next speaker with we introduced a little bit earlier in the meeting. And one more thing I can tell you about her is that the second time I met her, I came to a workshop in Wroclaw. And back then, what was interesting was that she was delivering a workshop on English. She was delivering workshop, the mistakes that the non-native speakers make. And I always thought my English was great. And in that workshop, I found out that it's not, and I make a ton of it. So this is how I remember her. Please help me welcome with the story title, Maybe This Was Not the Best Idea, Aleksandra Szczepaniak.
Bye, Alex. Watch out for yourself and send us some pics. Bye, guys. It was great. See you soon. That's exactly how I waved a whole minivan of my yoga mates goodbye. The yoga retreat in Georgia came to an end, but my journey was just about to start. It was the 7th day of my stay in Georgia, October 2019. And I was standing in the middle of a square in Kutaisi. It's the second most important city in Georgia. I looked around, and what I saw were wandering dogs looking for a place somewhere just to thrust, their painful bodies. Groups of mostly men socializing and mingling as Georgian tradition tells us to do. And a lot of old rundown cars. Everybody thick, dark hair, dark eyes. And I standing there alone. Long blonde hair, big green eyes. And thinking, maybe this was not the best idea. So I took out a small notebook from my pocket and I checked what a nice Georgian young man wrote in it. It was a place worth visiting. And I read, Shara Mountain. Sounds exciting. Okay, so I called a taxi, got into the taxi and said, main station, I want to go to Shara Mountain. I got a strange look from the taxi driver. He laughed as if like, are you serious? He started speaking Russian. I'm Polish. I don't understand Russian, but somehow we got to the bus station. He smiled and said, Mestia, Shara Mountain. Okay, so first I gotta go to Mestia, then I go to Shara Mountain. Easy. I had not planned anything before, but come on, I'll handle 2 stops on the way in the middle of Georgia. So I get into the van and I wait. I wait 1 hour, another hour, 3 hours. The 4th hour comes in and the bus is not leaving. Because as you must know, in Georgia, the bus leaves when enough passengers get into their bus, minibus. I looked around. I walked around the long street. I saw lots of bazaars like you have in Middle Asia. You know, bazaars with heaps of clothes all mingled together on one side. On the other side, another bazaar with vegetables fading from the heat. And I was still waiting. Finally, enough people arrived and we got into the minivan and we were off. So I was sitting in between the driver and a young Georgian man. In the back, there was some Asian girl, like totally lost tourist, and other middle-aged Georgian men. And I thought, maybe this was not the best idea. But we're driving, we're going, and the minivan that was really run down, like miraculously, is climbing the steep slope. Suddenly the driver says, "Coffee break." I said, "Oh, cool, coffee break in the middle of the mountains." And I must have understood coffee as all the men order dinner and cha-cha. Cha-cha is the Georgian vodka that is homemade usually and is stronger than 60% of alcohol. So out of pure curiosity and courtesy, I drink a shot. It nearly burns my throat out. But okay, we're back in the van, and suddenly all the guys' faces turn vividly red, and they decide to socialize with me, keeping up a conversation in Polish, Russian, and Georgian. And the driver suddenly decides that he's probably some kind of Schumacher. He steps on the gas and he starts like racing up the mountain. He doesn't care about the sharpening curves. And I suddenly see that there are rails missing at the edge of the road. And I feel sick. And I think, maybe this was not the best idea after all. Fortunately, we get to Mestia. It's totally dark already. The driver leaves me at the hostel. And there, I somehow find out that you can get to Shara Mountain if you got a group of people and a 4-wheel drive Jeep. I was alone. I had no Jeep, no company, and no plan whatsoever. So the following morning, I got down for breakfast in search of food and also inspiration. And I saw a couple sitting at a table, so I joined them. And I asked, "So guys, are you going to the Shara Mountain?" Yeah. Great. Can I join you? And then there was this awkward silence in the air. They looked a bit puzzled. So I just smiled and added, "I'll chip in for the patrol." And a couple of minutes later, I was sitting comfortably in a 4-wheel drive Jeep with a couple of poles, as it turned out to be, heading for the Shara Mountain. The landscapes in Georgia, in the Caucasian mountains, are amazing. Okay, the beauty of the mountains just beams right into your eyes. But somehow, the road we were following was getting narrower and narrower. And somehow it was so bumpy, it was hard to sit inside. And I don't know where from, streams started coming down from the side of the mountain and taking parts of the road. And we were crossing and passing by crosses with cha-cha that honored people who fell off the road and died. And then I thought, maybe this was not the best idea ever. Somehow, we got to the furthest place possible with the Jeep. And the guy says, that's the furthest we go. Now we gotta walk. Okay, let's walk. I'm in the middle of nowhere anyway. So we set off on a journey, on a trekking among yellow, big rocks, cold as ice streams. And after half an hour or 40 minutes, I stop, startled, and I stare into the eyes of one of the greatest miracles of nature I have ever seen in my life. An immense mountain growing out of the rocky ground with a crown of white clouds, illuminated by the sun with its holy glory, and a big, huge, icy ton at the bottom of the mountain, guarding it from civilization. And the freshness of that glacier just hit my face. And then I knew it was the best idea after all. And I thought, how did I get here to such an amazing miracle of nature in such a secluded and remote place? And the Shara Glacier taught me, you got to stay open and keep going. The road might be tough, dangerous, uncomfortable, but the destination is worth it. And I thought about life, that so many times in life, we don't want to embark on journeys that are complicated, dangerous, or unpredictable. Just let's think how many times we have not left the dreary old job because we were scared. How many times we did not take up studying again because, oh my God, we're too old. How many times didn't we leave a relationship we should have left a long time ago? The Shara Glacier tells us, why do we hold back so many times in our life? After all, it can be the best idea ever.
Thanks, Alex. If only I knew before that it is that simple. If you're in search for the meaning of life, you just fly to Georgia and you take a couple of trips with buses, taxis, and crazy poles in a Jeep. And there you will get the glacier talk to you and tell you that, okay, now more seriously, thank you very much for sharing this profound message with us. I totally agree. Sometimes the journey can be really tough, really unpredictable, but the destination is can be a really big payoff. We got our last prepared speaker. With that, let me remind all of you who feel like sharing a story today, you still can, because in the chat you have a link to the Storytellers open mic. So feel free to fill it out and you have a chance to speak in the second part of the evening. And now let me welcome our sixth speaker. And okay, so clearly the story with him and Storytellers Night or Storytellers Sundays is that he was supposed to speak in the last event, but he had to rebook his flight because he was in Portugal and he had his last chance to get home to Mozambique before all the airports in Portugal would shut down. So he made it. So today he's not speaking from Portugal, but he's speaking from Mozambique. And what's really important for him in his life is relationships. He said, like, the meaning of life or the center of his life are relationships, both with other people as well as with himself. So with that, with the story title Fly, help me welcome our sixth speaker, Lerio Cunha. Lerio, the stage is yours.
For me, life is described in two ways. The first one, I would say relationships, and the other one, journey, as Aleksandra talked about in the previous speech. Relationships are really important, but today we're not going to talk about it. I will mainly talk about the journey. And life for me is when you were born, we learn how to be pilots so that soon enough we will take the cockpit of an airplane and fly. And as we all may know, pilots don't only take one flight. They fly to one airport, to another one journey to the other. And that's life for me. Now, talking about airplanes and flights, when I was a child, my uncle, he was like a father to me. And he was a pilot, a real pilot. At least I thought he was. He was an airplane engineer. And every time an airplane would cross the hometown in Maputo, Mozambique, I would wave and scream, "Uncle!" because I thought he was flying in every plane that would cross the skies in Maputo. And I remember asking him if I could fly just like he could. And he said, "Of course, son, you can fly." Many years later, when I finished high school, becoming a pilot was and still is very, very expensive. So I thought, I want to tour the world. What better way to do it if I'm not a pilot? The best option at the time was to study tourism. Don't ask me why, but it felt like the best option that I had, an affordable one. So I applied for tourism and I got accepted in a university in Lisbon. Weeks before my moving to Lisbon, my mom organized a farewell gathering. And at the end of it, I sat down with my uncle and I asked him, "Do you have any advice for me, uncle?" And he said, "Yes, Lerio. In life, there's always two scenarios. There's the idealistic and there is the realistic one." And I asked him, "What do you mean, uncle? I'm not following." And he said, "Well, instead of going for tourism, I know that becoming a pilot is expensive, but why don't you go for something like engineering instead of tourism that is very idealistic?" Well, hearing those words, it hurt me a lot. I was devastated because he was the last person that I was waiting to hear those words. For him, I was waiting for some words of encouragement. But anyway, I went to Portugal and I did a bachelor degrees, also master's degrees. And after that, I had many part-time jobs. And the last part-time job that I had in 2016 was working in a school, in a primary school with kids, extracurricular activities. And at that time, I received a call inviting me to open an office in Lisbon that would focus on life skills for the youth. Okay, it was not a pilot, something that I could fly, but at least I thought it's something that will make my uncle proud. So I decided to take that thing. Next morning, I went to the school and I quit. And when I met with the person that did the proposal to discuss the salary, to sign the contract, he said that they still were waiting for other partners' approval. And I was like, "But sir, I already quit my job." And he said, "There's nothing we can do." And I never heard back from them. I was lost and devastated. And in that phase, I met a wonderful person called Christina. And she was a coach and she offered to coach me pro bono. And throughout her coaching, in one of the sessions, she asked me, "Lerio, for how long you've been doing your trainings voluntarily?" And I said 5. And next question, she asked, "So right now you are without a job?" probably you already know where she was going with this, but I wasn't. So I asked her, I'm not following Christina. Where do you want to go with these questions? And she said, well, basically what I'm trying to say is maybe it's time for you to go pro doing the trainings that you're doing for the last years voluntarily. And that's what I did. I went pro. And as an entrepreneur, it felt like flying a plane. But when that plane took off, oh boy, the journey was nothing but smooth. It was an endless, turbulent journey. And I started to have so many doubts, self-doubts. Why I don't have many clients? If I don't have one more client, how will I pay rent this month? Self-doubt started to kick in. I started to question everything, and I started to give voice to my uncle's words. And with all of those doubts, who did I call for advice? My mother. And as I called her, and I explained to Mom, maybe I should try to be an engineer or work, hustle to become a pilot, because everything I'm doing right now is just not the way I imagined. And she said, Lerio, soon enough, you'll see that you'll be able to fly. That was very confusing. And then she added, if you persevere and if you stay in the game enough, soon enough you will fly. You will fly even higher than most pilots do. I found that talk very philosophical, but I persevered. I stayed in the game, and I did everything I was doing for the last years as I started as an entrepreneur. And as soon as I internalized and I persevered, I started to have projects after projects, clients after clients, and it has been a wonderful journey. Every time I coach a client, I fly. Every time I deliver training at a company or at a Toastmaster event, I fly. Every time someone from the audience comes to me and asks me for a hug after I deliver a speech, I fly. Last January, a person called Caldas, he invited me to deliver training at the airline company here in Mozambique. And it was a training, 3-day training from janitors to pilots, to the executive directors, to flight attendants, to all the staff of the company. I know that becoming a pilot did not happen, but to have my ideas fly with them to everyone in that company, in a way, it felt like my dream of becoming a pilot came true. Now, Mr. Caldas is my uncle. And it was one of the greatest honors to have my uncle invite me to deliver a training at his company, in an airline company. And it felt like I was flying so high. And with this story, what I learned is that there's not only one way or the A way to achieve something or the A journey. I literally wanted to fly, and I find out there are so many ways to fly. And I hope you too can find your way to fly high, 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 more than pilots can do.
Fly, fly, fly. I think after this evening, many people will give it a try. Thank you for the motivational speech. And there's certainly something to reflect on. I really like your comparison, how you said it, every time that you coach someone, every time you deliver a workshop, that you actually fly. I love that one. Thank you, Lerio. Thanks to all of you. Thank you. Thanks to all of you prepared speakers.